If we let our current circumstance or our current environment dictate what we can do in this world, we're going to be caught in struggle all the time. It starts in here first. If we want our circumstance, if we want our environment to change, we have to change our way of thinking first.
Today, we're joined by a man who didn't just study the principles of wealth, mindset, and purpose, he lived them. Brian Proctor, the son of legendary thought leader Bob Proctor, and the man entrusted to carry forward one of the most influential success philosophies of our time.
So many people want the fire, they're not willing to put the wood on to get it. We've got to put the wood on first before we get the fire. He was just kind of programming my mind at how to look at things. And he would end it, you are capable of being, doing, or having anything you want in this world. You are the best in the entire city of Toronto. Just act. So don't fake it, because fake it is inauthentic. But when you act as if, you become that person.
Welcome to the Swedish Wealth Institute Podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Wood. Today's episode is very special for me, especially as a father. I got the pleasure to interview Brian Proctor, son of the legendary Bob Proctor. So this conversation just went way beyond success theory. It gave us a rare insight into how the top 1% actually are raised, the beliefs, the conversations, the environments that create their future. And it showed us how different it is for those who aren't in that top 1%. So what we learned in this episode is about how it is to grow up with Bob Proctor as a father, how mindset and self-image were taught at home and not in school, and how he's carrying that legacy forward in his book, My Father Knew the Secret. So this episode perfectly captures why the Swedish Wealth Institute exists. Our mission is to democratize success, to give you access to the same thinking and frameworks that create the top 1%, no matter where you're starting from. And that is why this episode is so important, and I hope you take the time to truly absorb these lessons. We always start our episodes by giving you a special gift, and today I want to help you apply what you learn here in the episode. So I want to give you 2 weeks free access to the Swedish Wealth Institute community. The community is a place where entrepreneurs from all over the world come together to turn these insights into action together. You'll find the link in the show notes to claim your 2 weeks free access. Let's dive in. Please welcome Brian Proctor to the Swedish Wealth Institute Podcast. I am super excited for this interview, both because of your book that is amazing, we're going to talk about, and also because you are you're this ideal that me as a parent is looking for. Your father was Bob Proctor, and you kind of grew up in his shadow, and now you've taken that step into building your own path. So tell us about that journey. How is it to grow up with someone that is as influential as Bob Proctor?
Well, it's so funny. I get asked that so often. And to me, he was just dad. He was who came home at night. He was just really my father. It was not until I was probably a teenager, maybe early 20s, that I really realized the influence he had on the world and what he was doing. I think I was very fortunate. I always say I live a charmed life. I feel very fortunate that Bob Proctor was my father. He was a great dad. I've got no bad stories. It was a great experience. And I was gifted to have him as a father, as a friend, and eventually as a business partner. So it was a great journey having him by my side.
It's really cool. So one of the things I've always been curious about is, growing up in a household like that. Like one of my friends is Jarek Robbins, who obviously is the son of Tony Robbins. And just speaking to him, I've realized that his growing up was different from mine. Like I don't have entrepreneurs and people in personal development in my family tree. And you now have worked with thousands of people all over the world. What have you seen was the difference for you growing up compared to, like, what did you learn that the rest of us didn't learn growing up?
I don't know if it was one specific thing. I'll give you a story. This is one of my earliest memories of my father. And this is really how I think he set me up for a way of thinking. When I was really young, like 5, 6, 7 years old, my father was on the road a lot. So he wasn't home as often as he wanted to be. But whenever he was, he'd be the one tucking myself, my sister, and my brother into bed. And I can clearly remember as a young boy when Dad was home, I'd go up and I'd get into bed and get all ready. And he'd sit on the edge of the bed and he would put his hand on my chest. And later he told me that physical connection is really important for energy. And he would relive my day. He would have me talk about all the things I did, all the great things I did that day. And if I was struggling with anything, here's the interesting thing. He didn't focus on the struggle. He would have me look for the good that I got out of that struggle. He would have me focus on something good, even when something bad happened. And that was I think he was just kind of programming my mind at how to look at things. And he would end it by saying, Brian, you are capable of being, doing, or having anything you want in this world. He said, you're going to go to sleep now. You're going to have a great sleep. When you wake up in the morning, you're going to have a big smile on your face and have a wonderful day. And that's really my earliest memories of my father. That's how he shaped me, I guess, is the best thing to put it. You know, Dad was given the book Think and Grow Rich in October of 1961. And that was the start of his journey into personal development. And I was born in December of 1961, that same year. So while he was altering his paradigms, changing his way of thinking by studying this material and getting into the self-development industry, I think I was almost like an experiment. He was shaping mine based on what he was learning. So I was gifted with that right from the early ages.
That's amazing. As a father, that is exactly how I would want my kids' first memory of me to be. How is that skill of like growing up with that way of thinking, how has that played out in your life?
Well, here's the interesting thing. First off, I truly believe that we're capable of doing anything if we can picture it in our mind. And that's something that Dad really gifted me with. So I don't ever live with limitations. It may be a struggle getting somewhere, but I'll figure it out. And that's a great thing. And, you know, that whole tucking in the bed at night thing, you know, because I learned that at such a young age, I was able to do that with my kids. And, you know, I never had any issues with my children through teenage years or any of that stuff. And now I have grandchildren and I see my daughter doing that with her children. And it's just such a, you know, that simple little act can change generations. And, you know, I got to witness what that was all about. But because of that, it enabled me to always look for the larger picture, look for the good in life. You know, really, I think, Daniel, probably one of the best ways to clarify it is that I was taught to look at life through rose-colored glasses. And that's really that is a truly good way to look at life. Not to say that bad things don't happen, but if we stay focused on the good that we desire and don't focus on the bad, look at life through rose-colored glasses, we will attract more good into our life. And I think the biggest thing that my father taught me was that we really do become what we think about. And we live in a world now with, let's face it, social media, 24 hours news cycle. We're getting inundated with all kinds of negativity, all kinds of crazy things. We have control over what goes on here. And if we stay in control of what we want, what we're going for, stay focused on the good, look at life through rose-colored glasses, we will attract more good into our life versus others that focus only on the negative. I think we both know, Daniel, they attract more negative into their life. And it really is that simple.
100%. You mentioned that, like, for you, Bob Proctor was simply Dad. When do you remember like the moment when you realize, like, wait a sec, my dad is famous and my dad is having an impact in the world?
Well, you know, so I grew up in it, obviously. When I was a late teen, early 20s, I was almost a roadie for him. You know, this was before the internet days. So he had a big blackboard and I would carry this blackboard into rooms and set it up for him and all that. Then I left. I got into real estate, became a real estate salesperson in Toronto, Canada. And because I had to do my own thing for a while. It wasn't, I came back and started working with him, 12, 13 years after I got into real estate. And it's a long story, but there's all kinds of things that went into play then. I didn't realize what a big deal he was until he was 72 years old. And, he was always working it. And he always knew that something big was going to happen for him. And it was when the movie The Secret came out and the book The Secret. And when that came out, all of a sudden, everybody wanted to know who Bob Proctor was. He got on Larry King Live. He was on Ellen DeGeneres, Nightline. He was on all kinds of TV shows. That is when it really clicked for me. Like, he's a pretty big deal. He's on Larry King. He got on Larry King Live twice. It was really interesting to watch that take place. The cool thing was he was 72 years old when that happened. And that's when everything really took off for him.
Yeah, and that's what people call an overnight success, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, the 40 years before that, no one remembers. It's that moment, right?
That is so
But
true.
let's talk about your journey. How did you get started in real estate? What brought you into that and excited you about that?
Well, I got into real estate because I was working with my father. And at that time, I was always just Bob Proctor's son. And I had to break out and do my own thing. And so at 26 years old, I got into real estate. I thought that looks like a really fun industry. I liked homes. I liked the whole real estate business. So I took all the courses. I got my license and I got into real estate. And here's a really cool little nugget. My father, when I first got into the business, before I even started, he said to me, Brian, act as if you're the best real estate agent in the entire city of Toronto. Just act as if. He said, don't fake it, because fake it is inauthentic. But when you act as if, you become that person. And man, I took it to heart, and that's what I did. And my first month in the business, I earned over $40,000, and we're going back into the 1980s. I was 26 years old. I think the most I'd ever earned in a year was around 18,000. And my income just kept going up from there. And that was because I started to use everything I learned from my father, but in the real estate business. And I had a lot of fun. So that was really the beginning of my real estate career.
I think it's an important distinction you made there between act as if and fake it till you make it. Because act as if is more of an internal. I'm going to act this way as if I am the best. While fake it till you make it is I'm telling everyone else I'm the best before I am. And that's a huge, huge difference. What were some of the other things you learned from your dad that you saw had a big impact on how you conducted yourself in that industry?
Well, it was, like I say, it was always be the best, do the best. And I think a big part of it was how you treat your clients. Here's an interesting thing. I can actually take you back to an old story. When I was young, we moved around a lot. And so this story will make sense to you in a minute, but I think it's important for a piece of what made me successful in the real estate business. I was born in Toronto, so that's where I started school. Probably a year after I started school there, we moved to London, England. So I started a new school in London, England. It wasn't quite a year later, we moved back to a different area of Toronto. I'm in a whole new school again. Year later, my father started working with Earl Nightingale out of Chicago. We moved to Chicago. So I'm in a new school again. So I'm in the fourth grade, 9 years old. I'm already in my fourth school. I was that perpetual new kid in school. And I can remember sitting in the den with him at this house on Maplewood Lane in Glenview, Illinois. He talks about it often. And he's sitting in the chair. I'm sitting on the ottoman. And I said to him, Dad, I'm terrified to go to school. I hate being that new kid at school. And this is what he said to me. He says, Brian, you put these 4 letters across the forehead of everybody you talk to, MMFI. And I looked at him and he says, it stands for make me feel important. He said, if you can make everybody that is in front of you feel important, feel seen, feel heard, he said, you're going to make friends in a hurry. You're going to get on fine in the world. And I never realized how that stuck with me. So that's what I did. And I made friends easily and it worked out really well. And it's about being genuine when you're with somebody. It's about actually listening to what they have to say. So often, you can think of a party you go to and you're talking to somebody and they're just spewing all their stuff on you. And then they're kind of looking around the room for who their next victim is. It's like, man, I don't want to talk to this person. But you get talking to somebody who is actually interested in you, is asking you questions, who is engaged with you. Man, you want to be with that person. They're making you feel important. They're making you feel seen. And that's what he taught me. So quite a few years later, I'm in real estate. And I was at a big event in Palm Springs, California, with a big real estate trainer. There was 2,000 real estate agents in the room. I was new in the business, but I was making waves. I was like a rookie of a year almost. I was doing a lot of sales, and I was sitting at the front of the room. Well, the speaker at this event, his name was Mike Ferry. Mike Ferry asked me up on stage, and he asked me in front of the group of people. He says, "What is your secret? What are you doing? You're new in this business, and you are doing all kinds of business." And I gave him that thing that I learned from Dad. I said, it was this whole MMFI piece, make me feel important. I said, I treated my clients like they were the most important person in the world. And that's how they felt. And because I did, they never went somewhere else. They bought their homes through me. But more importantly, they sent me all kinds of referrals. And I think if you can make everybody in your realm feel important, feel seen, feel heard, you're not being a doormat. You're making them feel seen. You're going to elevate yourself at the same time, and they're going to want to do business with you. When you can make others feel heard, feel valued, there's just so many benefits that come from that. And that's probably the biggest thing that I learned that made the most difference in my business. It's not some sales technique or anything of that. It's about how you engage with people and how you behave with people.
Brian Tracy actually shared something very similar at our last summit. He said, treat every person you meet as if they were $1 million client.
That's right. Yeah.
It's so interesting when you see how these amazingly successful people like yourself, you're doing the same things. It's not, you're not all reinventing the wheel. It's a few certain principles that work consistently. So what brought you, when you were having your success in real estate, what brought you back to working with your dad again? What attracted you?
Well, he was on me, Brian, come back into the business, or, and I kept saying, no, I'm good. And I hit
you were building your own legacy there for a while.
I was kind of building my own thing, but yeah. I hit a point where I was getting tired of the real estate industry. That's the honest truth. I was tired of showing homes all night and all weekend, doing all the things that were required. And I was getting a little bit burned out in it. And Dad kept saying, Brian, come back to the business. He said, you have things that now you can contribute to the business. So I did. And here's the interesting thing. And this is another good little note of how my father dealt with people and how he was. So I started selling the seminars. Again, this is before the internet was really in play. And so to sell seminars, Daniel, it was a tough nut. I mean, you had to go knocking on doors. You had to go to real estate offices, insurance offices. You had to put on presentations to all their salespeople, trying to get people to come to a seminar. It was not an easy business. And so that's what I was doing. Man, I was not loving it. So I can remember sitting down with Dad and I said to him, this is not what I signed up for. I'm not enjoying this part of the business. Here's the interesting thing. He didn't say, well, you got to try harder. You got to, he said to me, he says, that's fine. Then don't do it. He said, find another way to contribute. And that was it. I thought, wow, that's a sign of a good leader right there. And he says, you find a way to contribute, you make it worth the while. He says, you'll be worth your weight in gold. Well, I started thinking, what can I do to make a difference? And I remember in real estate, it was always staying in touch with a client. I found it incredible how many real estate agents never stayed in touch with their clients. And I'm thinking, that's your easiest source of business. And I was looking at the seminar business and we were doing the same thing. We weren't staying in touch with our clients. So I built out a system that would send emails. Email was just coming into play.
Yeah, you must have been pioneering that industry.
I actually was one of the pioneers in the email list building industry, which is crazy when I think about it because I am not technically inclined. But I thought, I used to love reading these little magazines that Dad left around, little booklets really, called Bits and Pieces. And in those booklets were just simple inspirational quotes and uplifting stories. And I thought, why don't I start sending out inspirational quotes from Monday to Thursday? And every Friday, I'll send out an uplifting story and build an email list. And that's our way of staying in touch with them. And I started to do that. And it was a struggle. It was a struggle because there weren't the systems that there are today. I had to figure it out. At first, I was doing it one off each thing. Then I found a program that I could do it all from my computer. Well, then I would have the internet provider shut me down thinking I was spamming. So I had to prove that I wasn't. And then, obviously things evolved and now we have all these web-based systems that work it. But I was doing that before it was a thing. And here's the interesting piece to all of that. If I had known all the pieces that I had to put together to build out that system, I probably wouldn't have done it. We're all looking at a certain business we want to get into. If we knew all the pieces that had to be done ahead of time, we probably wouldn't do it. But, when you get focused on today in this present moment, what can I do right now to get me one step better? And that's all you focus on. Boy, you can build all kinds of incredible things. And that's what I did. I just focused every day. How can I make this easier? How can I make this better? Because I had done that, when the movie The Secret came out, we were ready for the clients. They were able to leave their email with us and we were able to stay in touch. A lot of the other speakers were not ready at that time. They didn't have those systems in place. And because I was willing to do that, it built us out for success. And it was a pretty amazing experience.
Oh, I can imagine. And that must have been huge to be able to all of a sudden communicate what you'd been doing to thousands of people now in the hundreds of thousands and millions of people.
It made all the difference in the world. I look back on it and I think the gift that he gave me to just be free to figure out another way to contribute. And because of that, we are where we are today.
So you've written the book, My Father Knew the Secret. What did he know?
Well, he knew a lot, that's for sure. Here's an interesting thing, Daniel. I started writing that book before he passed away, and he knew I was writing the book. I didn't know what I was going to call it. And I kept telling him, I said, I don't know what the title is going to be yet. He loved the fact that I was writing this book. And all I was wanting to do was share stories and messages of what it was like having Bob Proctor as a father. I thought there's value in every seminar I was at is what's it like being Bob Proctor's son? And I thought this book will do that. This will allow me to share with the world what Bob Proctor would teach his son, because whatever he's going to teach me is going to be the very best. So I started writing that, and we had a lot of fun around it. I was maybe halfway through when he got sick and then passed away. And that was a tough time. I probably didn't pick up writing again for 3 or 4 months after he was gone. And the first thing I started writing was the first chapter, which is all around those final couple of months with him. And boy, they hold a lot of meaning to me because he taught me so much, especially at the end. But this book is all about that. It's the things that he taught me so that I can live this charmed life. And they're things that you would be able to take and apply in your own world and in your own life. I really felt he did know the secret. And I think the secret, not as a lame answer, I think the secret is different for all of us. The secret for me would be different than what it is for you. But I think within the pages of this book, you'll find what the secret is that you need to live a better life, just based on how he lived and how he taught me as his son to show up in this world. And that's what the book's all about. And it was a heartwarming thing. The title came to me in the middle of the night. I was actually having, and this was after he had passed away, I was having a vivid dream of my father. And then I woke up and this title, My Father Knew the Secret, it just was in my head. And I went and wrote it down because, in the middle of the night, sometimes these things don't stick. And it was just so perfect. I knew that was what it was going to be. It came out and it did so well. We ended up getting foreign publishers publishing in all kinds of other languages. And I know
you mentioned before we came on that you have it in Swedish, which is really, really cool.
It's been quite an experience putting that out. It's been just a fun experience.
I can imagine how meaningful it is as well, now that your father has passed, to be able to give on his memory. And your journey with him is interesting. I mean, obviously you've gone from being just a son to being, the roadie, the trainee in his business, to being a business partner. And now you are the teacher. Now you are the master. How has that journey kind of progressed through your life?
Well, I never thought I'd be here. That's the honest answer. I always thought it was Bob Proctor who was the speaker, who was the writer. I never pictured myself in that area. But after he left, it was a really simple thing. I wanted to carry on his message. I wanted to share his message with the world, but in my own way. I'm not going to be another Bob Proctor because he was very unique and I would be inauthentic if I tried to be him. But I can still share his message in my own way. And that became important to me. The response that I got when I released the book, My Father Knew the Secret, really helped with that. And a lot of people were reaching out. So that's what got me on stages, got me more publishing deals for other books, all kinds of things. And it's been important to share really what he taught with the world in my own unique way. And people are responding to it. So for me, it was the best way I can describe it, Daniel, was stepping through a terror barrier. My father always said, if you want to do something big in the world, you're going to have to step through some scary things. And getting on stage and speaking, being an author, doing all these things, coming on and doing podcasts, that was never a comfortable thing for me at the start. But Dad always said, if you keep stepping across that terror barrier, you keep stepping through your fears, you will gain strengths and you will learn things that you would never have learned if you weren't willing to step through that. And so I just kept stepping through it. If I felt fear, the first thing I thought, Daniel, was, man, there's something to be learned from this. So I'd step through it. And it has changed my life. It really has, because I am now really embracing everything that he taught me. And I am just doing it without thought as to, the bad things that could happen. I just am focused on the good that I'm trying to do. I'm trying to put out there. And because of that, it's bringing so much good into my life. And things that were uncomfortable aren't so uncomfortable anymore. So it's a process of growth all the time,
Yeah, I'm so happy for you that you have that. And, that's what I'm hoping to give to my children, to be able to wake up every morning and have that big smile and take that big step and not be afraid of falling down, because it's okay. We can always pick ourselves up. So what do you see now? As obviously, as you said, you're not going to just be copying your dad. You're now building, the company into, it's still his message, but it's your vision. It's your journey now. What's going to be different? What are you taking? What's going to happen now with the company?
Well, I'm not a part of what his company was. So it's myself and my wife, we have built out our own little company that we are working with.
Right. So you've completely separated that from his kind of foundation.
I did. He had a business partner that is doing her own thing. So I wanted to honor my father in my own unique way. And so for me, it's just about getting the message out consistently and in a really good way. I've got a program called Proctor's Principles that we have people from all over the world that are on, that we run through a whole program, teaching everything that my father had taught me, and helping them build their businesses, help them with their relationships. I mean, whatever it is that you need, it's all there. And it's been a lot of fun. We do live calls every Tuesday. I think I mentioned to you, we have a ton of clients from Sweden. Sweden, in my opinion, is a very hot spot in the world for people looking for good material to help live a better life. So for me, it's just about stepping out of my comfort zone all the time. But while I'm doing that, I am showing others how to do that. Because when we can step out of our comfort zone, man, so much good is going to happen to us. So much good.
Yeah, I think Sweden's definitely in that phase. We have a rule here, like a cultural rule called jantelagen, which means you're not allowed to stand out. You're not allowed to be different. And there's these 10 rules of it that if you read them, it's super depressing. It's just, oof. But I think a lot of people are seeing that it is super depressing and are now searching for something different. And we've seen that over the last decade, how that mindset really has shifted, and not just with younger people, but also with adults and people into their 50s are really starting to search for something. So what is your vision for your business now? Where do you want to take it in the next 20 years?
Well, the next 20 years, I don't know, Daniel. I won't pretend to have an answer for that one. Here's the way I look at life. Is what good can I do today? What good thing can I do today? Dad always had me focus on today rather than the future. So many people get overwhelmed when they think of all that they want to accomplish, all that they want to do. And then most of them, it just becomes a dream. They don't actually step out to do anything to get there. So for me, I've kind of reverse engineered all of that. And I look at what one little thing can I do today to get me one step closer to a bigger dream, one step closer to reaching more people. And if I keep focused on that each day, what can I do? All the other stuff will take care of themselves. The big stuff will take care of themselves. If we take care of the little things in the here and now, and that's really it. So for me, it's like joining you here today on this podcast. That's something that's going to reach some new ears. That's a great thing. I'm writing a new book right now. So today, some focus is going to be on that so that I have something else to come out with. I'm always looking for new ways to reach more people and to build a bigger audience of sharing what my father was about. We talked before this recording about the personal development industry, and there's some great people and there's some terrible people. Let's face it, there's a little bit of both in the industry. And I know just about everybody in the business. And for me, it hasn't been about taking people for a ride in any way. It's about how can I deliver more value? So my programs are not expensive, and I do a lot of stuff for free, quite frankly. Books are certainly not expensive. My father knew the secret, man. You get everything in that book, and you can go and buy that book for, a few dollars. Everything is there. I think it's important to open the eyes to possibility for everybody. And I think if we can have people start to focus on their dream, on what they want, and what can they do today to start getting one step closer to that dream, we're going to have more people accomplishing far more in this world. And that's a good place to be. I think today more than ever, we need to provide hope. We need to provide a way for people to see that there's a better way to live, a better way of being, rather than all the stuff that we're getting hit with all the time. How can we focus on something good, and what one step can I take today to make it a little bit better today? Man, if we start living that way, Daniel, the world is ours. It really is.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about the law of attraction, because obviously your father spoke a lot about it, and I'm sure it's ingrained in you as a person. So it's really interesting what you say about focusing on today, because obviously for a lot of us, law of attraction is about the vision board. It's the goal. It's, it's this thing that's over there. And putting that energy out there. So how do you combine that, the goal and clarity for the law of attraction, and the here and now that you're talking about?
Well, the goal and the clarity gives you the energy to do the here and now. You talk about a vision board. I've got one right across from me. So, I've got things in my future that I'm looking to attain, things I'm looking to do. So I'm always focused on that dream. But then I get into what can I do today to get me one step closer to that dream? And if that's what I focus on, I'm going to get there a lot quicker than by doing nothing. Part of the law of attraction that people get wrong is they think if I only think about this thing, it'll happen. They don't realize that they've got to take some action. They got to do something to bring that to them. And so that's where I always get back to what can you do here and now today? I think the big piece of the law of attraction is this, and this is something I learned from Dad right from when I was a little boy. He said, if we let our current circumstance or our current environment dictate what we can do in this world, we're going to be caught in struggle all the time. It starts in here first. If we want our circumstance, if we want our environment to change, we have to change our way of thinking first. And when we can change this, everything will start to shift in our world. So for me, it's always staying focused on the good and what do I want in this world, not focused on the negative or what's not working. Too many people are focused on, this isn't working, this is bad, this person did this to me. And that's what they're focused on. They bring more of that into their life. We become what we think about. So what are you thinking about, And so for me, it's always about staying in the positives, looking at life through rose-colored glasses and staying focused on what I do want, not to diminish reality or what could be happening, but not letting that reality dictate the way I think. I think that's the key to this whole thing. I think that's the secret. That is the secret. When we can not let our negative stuff that's happening dictate how we think, we'll get out of it so much quicker. it'll make all the difference in the world.
I agree. And I love what you say about how important it is to take action. I always think of the law of attraction as, one of those Hollywood in a movie where, the two starstruck, lovers see each other on the sides of a meadow and they come running at each other and they have that big hug. That's how I see the law of attraction. And so when you just sit back and you're just thinking, it's as if these two, they start running and then one stops and basically says, well, you better run here to me. I'm not going all the way over there. And I mean, obviously the other person is going to stop too. Like, well, no, we're supposed to run at each other. And that's how I kind of see the law of attraction. If you're not taking action, you're not moving closer. The other part won't take its step as well.
That's a great description. I like that.
I wanted to ask you about that explosion moment when The Secret came out, because I think a lot of entrepreneurs, and now obviously yours is the extreme example, right? But for a lot of entrepreneurs and a lot of successful people overall, it's that overnight success, right? You work for a decade and then something happens that allows your business to scale very, very quickly. And it's obviously really fun. And that's what you've been looking forward to. And all your dreams are coming true. It's also very difficult and it's stressful. What were some of the things that you had done to keep yourself ready? In addition to that, the email marketing system, what had you done to prepare that allowed you to take that growth?
Well, I think you need systems in place, of course. And those systems will change as growth occurs at a rapid rate, but you'll have the ability to deal with that. But it's staying focused on the big picture, but doing what you can right now. And, so for us, it was just scaling how many people you were helping. Dad was always about helping people. What could he do to help people get out of that rut or focus on something bigger? And he knew that if he could do it for a larger audience, he was going to help more people. And I get it. And that's it. We live in the world of the internet now where we can reach thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of people just with a click of a couple of buttons. So how do we do that? How do we do it effectively? And, there'll never be any one way. There's always going to be a lot of different ways. I think the key to all of this, and I watched my father when The Secret came out and it started to explode. He became such a giving, generous man. He didn't hoard for himself. He was always giving to organizations, to people. He was out doing as much good as he could. And because of that, he kept attracting more into his life. And I think if we can stay focused on the good that we do in whatever our business is and find ways to keep expanding that, we'll hit those things. We'll hit those moments where it'll explode because we're coming from the right place. I've seen people, especially in our industry, I've seen people that are not authentic, that sound great, and they build up a real big business for a period of time, but it doesn't maintain because they are not authentic, and people eventually catch on, and then it explodes. Whereas I saw somebody like my father who was authentic, was always focused on the good. And that's where I'm at. I think if we can just keep putting out good, all the big things, it will happen. It will happen if you stay focused on it for the right reasons.
I agree. I mean, we've seen so many grow and then they implode and then, someone else comes, fills that void and it's the same thing. And that's really what we're looking for is how do we find those that not just sound good, but actually have that behind them. What was one system challenge that you had in this growth? Like what was something that really was a scramble to fix?
Well, certainly in the beginning, that whole email list building thing, there was a lot of heartache in that. Now that's a lot easier. So if I was to say in today's world, what is the thing? It's about getting out to more people. And that's a constant fix. It's, social media. I started a podcast literally just a week ago. And, the podcast, it's called Born to Win. And it is simply this. It's 15 minutes or less of a nugget that will help you to start your week. And I send it out every Monday. And it's free, obviously. And we'll
link to that in the show notes so that people can go check that out.
Oh, that'd be great. Thanks, Daniel. I think in today's world, it's finding the platforms that you can deliver your value for good and keep putting it out there. And when you find the things that work, that take off, feed them more, feed them more. If you find something is not working, then stop doing it. If it doesn't feel good, stop doing it. So many people hang on and they keep doing something just because they're kind of comfortable with the process of it, but it's not doing them any good. Let go and focus on what is working and then feed it more. And so right now it's, social media is a thing, as much as we all hate to admit it. And what good can you put out there? Podcasts, different platforms of ways that you can get your message out. Start doing things for the sake of doing it, just to provide good. When you can do that, you will attract people to your business that will pay for your services. And that's just a simple fact of life. It's best description for it is this. So many people want the fire, and they're not willing to put the wood on to get it. We've got to put the wood on first before we get the fire. And so what good can you put out first before it'll start flowing back your way? And just start dabbling in it. Have fun with it. I think the key is to enjoy the experience as you're doing it.
Yeah, that is an important one, because I think we as entrepreneurs get so lost in what we're doing that we forget to celebrate these wins that we have. And I think that's such an important to just take a moment sometimes and say, wow, this was really cool. Let me have a glass of champagne or whatever, sparkling cider if you don't drink alcohol, or or sparkling water if you don't drink anything, right? Yeah, just celebrate these small wins sometimes. As a father, what is one thing you hope that your children, like if they would ever write their, my father knew the secret, what is one thing you'd hope that they would include in their version of the book?
Oh, I've never been asked that question before. For me, it would just be this, that they learned how to live their own life in their own way, and in a good way. Let's face it, we all want the best for our kids. I hope that I have left my kids with the ability to think that they can achieve or do anything. And that's it. I remember my daughter, she got into modeling when she was very young at 14. And at 14 years old, she had a goal to buy a house. That was her focus. That was everything. And she saved and saved. And she said to me, she said, Dad, a lot of people in this business, they're into drugs and all these things. She said, that's so bad. And I'm glad she could see that. And she was focused on a goal. And that's something that I taught her. Her grandfather obviously taught her. And that was all she wanted. Well, she was like 20 years old, 21 years old. I'm not sure. She was very young. And she bought her first house. I mean, she was able to get into her home, but that because she learned the value of setting a proper goal and doing what was required to get there. And I think that in itself is a great gift we can give our kids. The fact that we can show them that if they focus on something bigger and do what's required to get there and take the steps to get there, you can attain anything in life. And that's a gift.
That must have been such a proud moment for you when she took that step. That must have been amazing. Yeah. Let me ask, do you think any of your children will take over your business in the future the way you've stepped up after your father?
That's a great question. I do not know.
Or would you want them to? They might be on a completely different journey.
I would say this. I would never inflict that on my children. If they wanted to, great. That's their deal. I could see my son would maybe want to do that, possibly. But I don't know. He's going in a different direction right now. So I think they go in whatever direction they want. For me, yes, I am following my father's direction, but that was my choice. Dad didn't inflict that on me.
And you took a different journey for a while as well, and then boomeranged back into it.
Right. Yeah.
All right. So we always end these episodes with a rapid fire round. So my team has prepared a couple quick questions. So you just answer the first thing that comes to mind as I asked you these. You ready?
I'm ready.
All right. Here we go. All right. So first question, what is a quote from your father that you still keep visible?
Is to stay focused on your goal, stay focused on the dream, and you can attain anything.
Nice. That's a good quote. What is one habit you've dropped in the last year that surprised you?
Working out consistently.
That's a really good one.
Not every day, but at 5-6 days a week. I want to stay healthy. I'm in my 60s and I want to live a long, healthy life.
And that's one of those gifts for our children, right? The healthier we are, and the more you can be with your grandkids. So that's amazing. What is a book or the book you gift most often, not your own?
I can tell you right now, it's this one right here. It's called The Creative Act, A Way of Being by Rick Rubin. I don't know if you've ever heard of Rick Rubin. He's a music producer, really interesting guy. He's worth hundreds of millions of dollars. And this book has so much value in it for everybody, not just if you're in the music industry. It's a great book.
Oh, that's awesome. We'll link to that as well in the show notes. That sounds amazing. And I'll need to pick it up myself. What is a belief you changed your mind about in the last 2 years?
Oh, that's easy. That I could be a speaker or an author. I always thought that was my father's thing. I think I shared that earlier. And
yeah, exactly.
I'm good with it now.
Oh, I love that. What's something you're really excited about in the next 12 months?
Something I'm excited about is just reaching more people. We're doing retreats with people. We've got the online programs, and I love our clients. Man, we got the best clients. I interact with our clients. It's not a me speak to you kind of a thing. It's an interactive thing. And I'm loving it. I'm loving watching it grow. And we're finding new ways to engage our audience.
I love that. I mean, I think that's one of the beautiful things of this industry. If you're authentic in it, you're attracting absolutely amazing people, because that's the type of people that are attracted to this message. So, Brian, I really appreciate you joining. Before you go, we always try to spoil our audience. So I know you've prepared something really cool for them. So what do you have?
Well, I've got a few things. I mean, if you go to brianproctor.com, there's all kinds of free resources there. There's access to the different books. If you want to get one of the books, there's some free bonuses there. And we've got our podcast now, Born to Win, that's out there. So there's just go to brianproctor.com. You'll see just about everything you'd want there.
So we're going to link to a bunch of stuff now in the show notes. It's going to be brianproctor.com. It's going to be Born to Win podcast, as well as that amazing book. And of course, to your own book, the My Father Knew the Secret. So that is absolutely amazing. Any last words to our audience before we let you go?
Here are a couple of nuggets. Theodore Roosevelt, he had a great quote back in 120 years ago, I guess it was. He said, "Comparison is the thief of joy." Don't compare yourself to other people. You do what makes you feel good. Chase something big. Go after something big. Don't live small. Live large, and chase something really big. Because if you step out and bet on yourself, I always say to everybody, don't settle. Don't settle, and don't compare yourself to the neighbors or anybody else. You do your thing, and you do it with vigor, and don't worry about what other people think. Man, you start to live your life on your terms. And that's how we build a happy, healthy, wealthy life.
That's the perfect way to end it. Brian, I appreciate you taking the time and sharing your story. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Daniel. I'm really glad to be here.
What an amazing interview there with Brian, and I appreciate you listening. Now, I'm going to try to capture what we learned in our What is the Difference That Makes the Difference? Because that's what we're always trying to figure out in this episodes is what is the difference that makes the difference between success and, well, not. In this case, we've identified multiple things that we can bring with us into our everyday. So the first takeaway that me and the team have found is that identity programming beats motivation. So one of the things I want to bring with myself as a father is one of his earliest edges wasn't money or contacts, it was conditioning. So his dad didn't just say, believe in yourself. He installed it every evening. So every evening he would put his hand on his chest. They would replay the day. They would extract the good from the struggle. And then he would end by saying, you are capable of being, doing, or having anything. So as a parent, but you can also do this to yourself, try doing this 5 minutes when you're going to bed. Just ask your child, or again, yourself, what did you do well today? Next, what was hard and what did you learn from it? What are you proud of? Tomorrow, what's one win we're going for? Then finally, just end by saying you are capable of being, doing, or having anything. That will help your children and yourself build a mindset of creating solutions. All right, our second, and I think this is a really important point in the kind of personal development space, and it's a definition change. All right, so our second point is act as if creates result, fake it till you make it creates insecurity. Right? So Bob told Brian, act as if you're the best. Don't pretend you're the best. So you have to act like the top agent, like Brian did internally. And that created the behavior that created the success. So by pretending that you are great, that means you're faking it. It's not real. And people sense that, and you sense that. But acting as if, without broadcasting it, without performance, without bragging, just acting the part, that's how you start becoming the part. And it's a big, big, big difference, and an important one for us to bring with us because it's often been misunderstood. All right, the third, make people feel important, and you win by default. So this was a really cool one, right? The FI rule, right? The make me feel important printed on people's foreheads, right? So his rule he had was ask 2 questions before you give one opinion. Mirror back. So what matters most is fill in the blank, right? And then anything you want me to understand that I haven't asked, right? This way of making people your center is incredibly, incredibly powerful. Our fourth takeaway was the right path isn't a 20-year plan, it's today's step. So Brian's model that he got from his father, Bob Proctor, is keep the dream, but build it one step at a time today. So we don't have to pretend to answer what's going to happen 20 years down the road. We just have to make today count. So how do I take action today that moves me 1% closer to your goal? And then do it as quickly as you can. Do it before lunch. All right, our fifth and final takeaway, freedom scales through systems, but you stay in touch. So what Brian did in the team was he pioneered email list building because he saw the pattern that most people don't stay connected, and that loses the relationship and costs the business. So he said, if I'd known how hard it would be, I wouldn't have done it. And that was going back to our last one, right? He just took the next step. So find ways to build systems into your business. Just start taking action. You don't have to map out the whole way, and build ways to stay in touch, right? Create an email, give value, send a voice note, invite people into a mastermind or a personal check-in, just something to build that relationship. If we can do these 5 things, our lives will change forever. Thank you so much for joining us today. I hope you got value from this. And if you did, please do us the favor to hit subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. If you know someone who's a parent, a leader, or just someone who needs that mindset reset, please share this episode, because this is one of these conversations that truly can have a ripple effect. If more parents were like Bob Proctor, I think we'd all be much more better off. Hey, and I want to remind you again, we'd love to give you a free 2-week trial to the Swedish Wealth Institute community. You have the link in the show notes. And of course, I want to give you a free ticket to our upcoming New Year's Money Mastery New Year's Summit that will help you set your financial life on to the next step of your journey in these amazing events. They are 4-day events. We're going to be doing it both in the European time zone, the Asia Pacific, and North America. So you can go and find the time zone that fits you the best. Make sure you register. We're giving you a free ticket to learn from Robert Kiyosaki, from Les Brown, Brian Tracy, Jack Canfield, Marcy Shimoff, Janet Atwood, and other absolutely amazing speakers. So please make sure you claim your free ticket. You can find that in the show notes as well. And now, of course, next week, we have an absolutely amazing episode, which is with Steven Shapiro. He's going to be talking about innovation, why people think they're innovating when they're just doing more of the same, how to build real systems for ideas that you can turn into results, how you can innovate in a way that's practical, that will change your life and business. So please make sure you're subscribed. because you're going to want to make sure you see that one. All right. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you, and I'll see you next week.
The reason you're too busy is you're working on the wrong things to begin with, and you keep on investing in AI is not a differentiator. Maybe for a short period of time, but it's going to become core. AI is going to be an expectation. If you don't have it, it's like not having Wi-Fi in a hotel. The person who is least like you is probably going to annoy the heck out of you, and therefore they're the person that you actually need but will typically avoid. And so if you only hire people who fit the mold, eventually the organization will grow mold, because you're just going to get moldy, stale ideas from the same people with the same thoughts and the same experiences. So when we start to implement an idea, we always sort of joke that yeah, but is the enemy of innovation. But the reality is, once we start to think this is a great idea, confirmation bias kicks in.